Today's video brought to you by this awesome clock I got for my birthday. Hey friendship, it's Ashlyn. I talk about books. And you. Isn't there something else you should be doing? Today I want to talk about something that is absolutely essential to anyone who wants to be a professional writer, and that is establishing a writing habit. I'm going to use my more or less catchphrase here and say inspiration is wonderful kindling but terrible fuel. If you want to be a writer, you have to make it a habit and do it frequently. You're never going to get that book done if you're waiting for inspiration to strike the whole time. If you want to do it, you have to actually sit down and write it, and I'm here to tell you how. Let's dive right in. The first step is to stop making excuses. I'm not going to pretend that there aren't legitimate times when our writing needs to take a back seat in our lives, but 9 times out of 10, I don't have time to write is a lie we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better about the fact that we're not writing. If you have time to watch TV after work, you have time to write. If you have time to spend an hour taking BuzzFeed quizzes, you have time to write. If you have time to watch this video, you have time to write. Be honest with yourself. Be disciplined and stop making excuses. If you want this, you're gonna have to take the time to get it done. Whether that means getting up an hour earlier, giving up some of your leisure time, or going to bed a little late. If you want writing to be your job, treat it like a job. That it's non-negotiable. Here's the thing about habits. They are hard to form. Fitting something new into your routine is going to be difficult and uncomfortable at first. Sitting at your desk those first couple of days is probably going to be miserable. And here's the other thing about habits. Once you form them, they start to feel much more comfortable and necessary. Once your writing habit is established, skipping it will start to feel unnatural. For the average person, it takes about 30 days of doing something consistently to make it a habit. Stick with it and it gets easier. But exercise caution because it only takes 5 days of skipping something for it to fall out of your routine. So, we've established that it's important and it's going to take some discipline to form, but how exactly do we form a writing habit? Well, the best way to start, in my opinion, is to pick a time of day. If possible, it is better and more practical to write at the same time every day. I understand that's not possible for everyone, so we'll circle back to other possibilities later. But if you can, block out 1 or 2 hours a day and dedicate that to your writing time. This makes things a lot easier. If you're a morning person, you might consider getting up an hour earlier and dedicating that to your writing time. I am not. I don't do this. But I've heard it's very effective for other writers, so set your alarm and get to work. If you're a night owl, maybe block off 2 hours after dinner to crank out some words. I am also not a night owl. I am a tired person. I do neither of these things. For me personally, I've found the most effective way for me to get my writing time in every day is to give up my lunch hour. I do not have the discipline necessary to ensure I'll be able to get up early enough to do it in the morning, and my job is really stressful and tiring, so I like to just shut my brain off when I get home. And I will tell you, giving up my hour of YouTube decompression time was very, very challenging. It was not easy for me to get into the habit of pulling out my notebook every day and working on my novel. But I did it, and now I don't feel right when I don't work over my lunch break. It's my writing time, and I have learned to value and appreciate it. When I clock out now, my writer brain immediately turns on, and it's not hard for me to sit down and get to work. Tell yourself, this is my writing time, and I have to stick to it. Pencil it in, settle in, and do it. So what if you can't schedule a certain amount of time every day? Well, that's okay. You have other options. The biggest thing to remember is that your brain loves familiarity and routine. It's great at making associations. So another thing you can do is have a specific place in your home or outside of it that you go only to work. Maybe you're a commuter and you take the bus. Well, if you pull out your phone or your notebook every day when you sit down on the bus and start to get work done, your brain will start to associate the bus with writing. Maybe there's a coffee shop you love or a desk that you sit at. Wherever it is, make sure it's a comfortable place that you can sit down and work for as long as you're going to that day. So sit down, get your tea or coffee, and tell yourself you're going to sit there until you hit whatever writing goal you've set for yourself that day. Over time, it gets easier to sit there and get it done. Speaking of goals, that's another great way to get into a writing habit. A lot of people set daily word count goals. I can't go to bed until I hit this many words. I don't do this, and I'll probably make an entire video on the pros and cons of it at some point. To keep it simple, I have ADHD, mental health problems, and I'm a very busy person, and if I'm consistently trying to hit a word count goal and not, I feel really bad about myself and am more likely to skip writing the next day, and therefore it's not very practical for me. If you think they'll work for you, go right ahead and give them a shot. I, on the other hand, use time goals. I absolutely have time to write for at least an hour every day, and whatever I get done is perfect. Sometimes I can crank out 1,500 words, other days I only get 250. Either way, I'm gonna let it be fine. Because regardless, I met my goal. And sometimes my writing time goes so well, I write for longer. But if I'm dying after that hour, it's perfectly fine for me to stop. No, I don't end up getting drafts done as quickly as some other people, but this is what works for me and I'm happy with it. Just because Rita writes a lot over there can get 2,500 words a day doesn't mean you have to, okay? Comparison is the thief of joy. So forget what anyone else is doing and figure out what's best for you. Maybe it's a half hour a day, or maybe weekly goals are better for you. Maybe you can't fit in writing every day, so you have a 10,000 word a week goal or must work on your book 5 hours a week. Figure out how goal setting works for you and utilize it however makes the most sense. Another thing your brain absolutely loves is rewards. We think about writing in terms of sacrifice so often, but let's talk about giving ourselves treats when we get done what needs to get done. And no, sleep is not a reward. Go to bed, get enough sleep, take care of your body. But you know what is a nice reward? Dessert, going out, getting that new book you couldn't wait to read. Maybe if you get your words in for the day, you get to have a nice slice of cheesecake. Or you can have a nice glass of rosé when you sit down to write. You're doing a hard thing. It's not easy to sit down and put words on a page. You deserve a treat for getting it done. Rituals are another great way to start telling your brain that it's time to write. All the great writers have rituals, right? So why should you be any different? I certainly have rituals. A couple things that I'm really into that are kind of silly is I'm really into crystals and essential oils. So when it's time for me to write, I sit down with a tiger's eye to help me with my motivation, and I have this creativity juice essential oil that I like to use. As far as this is concerned, there is some science behind the effects that scents have on the brain, the olfactory sense. I'm not sure if the oil itself is working, but the smell really does make me think, oh, it's time to write. Let's put some of this on right now. Smells like writing time. I recorded that for some reason. I also like to wear this little Ravenclaw diadem pin when I'm writing, because the diadem of Ravenclaw is supposed to broaden your mind and make you more creative. Does it actually work? Of course not. It's a fucking pen. Harry Potter is fiction and there's no such thing as magic. At least not in that sense. But it's part of my ritual, so when I put it on, I know it's time to write. Create your own fun writing rituals. Maybe you sit down at your desk with a cup of your favorite coffee or tea. Maybe you do a face mask at night and when you take it off, it's time to write. Maybe you shower in order to prepare for your writing time. Do whatever you have to do to make the experience pleasant enough that you'll sit down and do it. Just be sure your rituals aren't too distracting. I used to try and listen to audiobooks while I wrote, and let me tell you, that didn't work. So now I just watch writer advice on YouTube, because I'm afraid to sit in silence. Am I more effective like this? Probably not, but I know Jenna Mareshi and Alexa Dunn appreciate it. So maybe you can turn on Ashlyn James videos when it's time to get to work. The subscribe button is right there. Ring that bell so you can write to the beautiful tones of my voice every week. The final piece of advice I'm gonna leave you with is this. Working to establish this habit is going to be difficult. So it might be important for you to really think about why you want to do it. So it might be important for you to think about why you want to make this a habit. Remind yourself of how badly you want to get this book published, or how important you think this poem is going to be to someone. Whenever I want to introduce a new habit into my routine, I make a list of all the reasons I want to make it a habit and post it somewhere I'll see it often. Then I go over it when I'm struggling to find motivation. Motivation is a fleeting thing and it can be hard to come by when you need it. So remind yourself of why you need it. Write down why it's important to slog through the hard part and go over it when the slog feels impossible. You can do this, my friend. You're a great writer. Make it happen. All right, that's all I've got for you today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because I do post new videos every week. While you're down there, you can subscribe to my newsletter to get a free short story. And you can follow me on Twitter. We'll see you next week, writer friends. Bye. Habit, habit, habit. How many times can I say habit? It's like the next young adult bestseller. This is dumb.